Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the 2024 Cataloging Refresher for Evergreen, Indiana. This is a required training for anyone who currently holds Cat 1 permissions in the consortium. So if you currently hold Cat 2, you are welcome to join us, but this is not a requirement, nor does it affect your access to, um, to Evergreen. My name is Britta Dorsey. I am the Development Support Administrator for Evergreen, Indiana. My email address and phone number are there if you ever need to contact me for anything Evergreen, Indiana related. My co-host today is Jocelyn Lewis. She has graciously agreed to help me with the refresher. She is the cataloging supervisor at the Indiana State Library. So today we are going to be covering policy and procedure changes that occurred this year. And then we are going to look at updates and fixes coming in the 313 upgrade in November. And then we're going to go through a few odds and ends, just a few reminders about policy and procedure, things like that in Evergreen, Indiana. So first, let's look at the policy and procedure changes. There were some changes this year to the cataloging policy and procedures guide. So let's go through them so we are all on the same page. So first, let's look at the changes we made in the cataloging policy. There were several updates to the cataloging policy this year. I have link to just a list of the changes and then a link to the official policy that is located on the .org website. So I wanted to go through those changes with you. Most of the changes, and these were applied on October 8th, the cataloging committee recommended these changes to the executive committee, and then those were approved during that executive committee meeting. Most of the changes in the policy were to clarify or update information about training. So, for example, in this about the copy cataloging training for copy catalogers, they need to take the basic cataloging in Evergreen, Indiana. It was just an update from Introduction to Cataloging. And then if we scroll down a little more, under the certified copy catalogers, let me make this a little bigger actually. Under the certified copy catalogers section, we updated that name of the basic cataloging course again. And then we updated the terms used. Earlier in Evergreen, we used to use volume and copy for our holdings information, and it has changed to call number and item. So we updated the policy to reflect that. Under the certified catalogers, or the Cat 1s, I changed the name of the advanced cataloging in Evergreen, Indiana course. I changed we removed that the cataloging committee is responsible for the class, though I might try to add that one back later. And the addition of the annual catalog and refresher webinar that is required to retain those Cat 1 privileges. And then we also removed, it was an update to that next sentence about when the refresher became required back in 2015. Down to the next page, under our permanent record standards that our bib records must have, we removed the requirement for standard GMD terminology. We haven't required or had GMD terminology in our records for quite a while now. So we have finally updated the policy to reflect that. Under maintenance standards, we just added a note about staffing surveys for catalogers that might be conducted by either the cataloging committee or the Evergreen, Indiana administration team. And then finally, under the little section that talks about that automated process that deletes certain items that are in a specific status after 5 years without any changes. So, you know, the damaged in process, etc. We included the note that materials that are in a status of discard weed will be automatically deleted after 6 months. We figured that was an important addition to the policy, since it wasn't in there before, and we know libraries are using that discard weed status. But those are the changes that we made to the policy. Again, they were recommended to the EC by the cataloging committee, and then they approved it at their last meeting in October. So let's move on to some changes to the procedures guide. First, let's look at the 020 ISBN section, and I've linked to the procedures guide to that specific area on each slide. We added language about removing the electronic version ISBNs from bib records for physical material, just to make sure that we have that in the procedures, and just as a reminder that these do need to be removed from our bib records, especially since they are not there for physical material. For the 588 source of description, it's not a new field itself, but the cataloging committee approved the use of the 588 field instead of a general 500 to describe where the title proper was taken. So this section was added. So for 588s, a note stating where the title proper was taken should be included in that 588 when it is not taken from one of these sources. So the title page, title sheet of a manifestation consisting of multiple pages, or the title frame or title screen of a manifestation consisting of movie images. And those are taken from the RDA toolkit. So if it's from, you know, like the disc label container or the cartridge, then we want to make sure we include that 588 field with this information. The first indicator will be a 0 for the source of description, and the second indicator is undefined. And these are just examples of how they would be entered into the MARC record. And for punctuation, we want to add a terminal period at the end of the field unless the last subfield ends with an ellipses or period following an abbreviation or initial. 7XX added entry headings. We just added a little bit of language that for the general rule of thumb is that every corporate or personal name found in the statement of responsibility, we have that in the 245 subfield C, should appear in a 7XX field unless the name appears in a 1XX, because we don't duplicate that. So if it's in the 245 subfield C, but it's already in that 1XX, we do not need to add it again in the 7XX. The 776 additional physical form entry, we added this information. It is used to describe information about other available physical forms of the target item. For Evergreen, Indiana, we do not require you to include or add the 776 fields in the MARC records. However, they should not be deleted if already present in the record. And I just realized, just a second. I just realized I never pulled my mic down, so I apologize for that, though I usually speak loud enough that shouldn't be too big of a deal. But anyhow. Next, we added RDA information to the playaways section. So we added information about the 3.3X's with the subfield A's, B's, and C's of what you can include in those playaways. The 344s, the digital and non-volatile flash memory, and then the 347, which is for digital file characteristics that we have chosen to use locally for play array records. So we would have that 347 blank indicators with a subfield B under play away. If you weren't aware, the consortium has its own local heading thesaurus. This year, we added the genre heading dyslexia-friendly books. So this is just an example of what it would look like in the flat text editor. And then, oh, I did not fix it. This would have a second indicator of 7 in the mark editor, and then the subfield A and subfield 2. But I also wanted to point out the other headings that we have in our local thesaurus. Right now, we only have genre headings. We have had other headings in the past. However, they have been deprecated to prefer updated Library of Congress headings. So, so we currently have LGBTQIA plus fiction, Christmas stories, Library of Things, and then again the dyslexia friendly books. So these would be entered under the 655 because they are genre or form headings like Library of Things. And so when you enter them, they should link to the information in the actual thesaurus. So I'm always really excited about these just because it allows us to connect more when there's terms lacking in other thesauri. All right, so now we are going to look at the 313 updates and fixes. So let's take a look. Jocelyn is going to cover these two topics for you. So if you give us a moment while we switch shares.
Okay, everyone should be seeing my screen now, which is the splash page for Evergreen.
And Jocelyn, if you go into the More menu on the Zoom thing, you can click on to hide video
Oh,
panels.
that would probably be helpful. Okay. So, we have not had a significant change in any of our interfaces and cataloging for quite a while, but that's going to change with the upgrade. And one of the most pronounced part of that is going to be in the Mark editor. So when we do updates to software, it's not just to do things to irritate us or change for change's sake. It is literally translating code from an old coding language to a new one. And if you've ever studied a foreign language, you'll know it's very hard to get literal one-on-one translations. So what we get is essentially the Mark editor we've always known, but it looks a little different because it's never going to look exactly the same as it did before, but it also has some new functionalities. So I am in the migration server, which has the new software on it. And I'm going to do a search, and it's going to be pretty normal. Your search results are going to be normal. And then I'm going to go into a record. And this is where things look a little different. You have a lot of options and tabs up here, and I'm only going to go over the Mark editor. Britta's going to talk about some of the other things. The Mark editor is a different. It's kind of a little bit different, a gray bluish. It's way more spaced out. So you will be doing a lot of scrolling to see the full record. But I do think it makes it a lot easier to read. There's a lot more spacing in between the fields, which I think is helpful. And there's very clear spacing between your subfields, which I think is also helpful. So I'm going to start at the top and work my way down on the new enhanced Mark editor. So at the top, you have your add item where you can put your barcode and call number, the fast add, that works as normal. Over here, you have your delete record button. So, and it works as normal. If I were to delete this, it would tell me there are copies and I can't delete the record. if you happen to know the database ID for a deleted record, this would say undelete record, and it would still show red up here as a deleted record. So that works the same. Your flat text editor is still here and it still works exactly the same. So if you prefer working in there, you will have no problems. You have a line of things under here. So you still have your ads here. You have your undo and your redos. There is a Launchpad bug that this isn't a super consistent one, but I haven't been able to get it to, it's worked fine for me. You can still Control Z. If you want to stack your subfields, that's still there. Validate is there, but remember, if you click validate, it actually takes it a while to go through and it will tell you if things are not validated. But remember how Evergreen works is that it's looking to validate the entire string of vegetarians and fiction, and that's not, we don't have an authority file for that, but we do have an authority file for vegetarians and South Korea. So this is actually a correct subject heading, even though it's showing the alarming red. So again, you don't ever need to really validate anything. The script will go through and validates behind the scenes and it captures the new headings that we need. So the help button, though, is a bit different. So you still have your keyboard shortcuts that will show when you hit on it. And you can still use all of the keyboard shortcuts from what we've been used to. They still work fine in this editor. But if you scroll down, you'll see that for each line, mark line, you get a lot of information. So this is the line for the main entry, so it tells you what indicators you can use in which spaces and what subfields you can use. So essentially, it's like putting bib formats and standards into the interface itself. So you don't need to like bounce out to bib formats and standards as much. It's still not as much information as you get in bib formats and standards, but if it's just a thing where you are like, I know the subfield for this is either B or E, you can click on this and it will tell you what it is. And again, it does this for automatically expands each one. When you hover over it, it turns yellow. And when you're ready for it to go away, you can still do editing here, but if you want it to go away, you can just go up and hit help again. So moving down into the fixed fields, if you click anywhere in the field, you'll get a drop-down menu with the options for what codes can go in there. Now, as of right now, these codes aren't 100% correct. The correct values are in here. So if you look at audience, these are all correct, preschool, primary, etc. But when you get down, you also see online and direct electronic, and those are not codes that you use in the audience field. Those are codes that you find in other fields. And Britta and I have discovered that these are things we think we can switch from our back end, but it sounds like there might be some other issues with the fixed field. So as of right now, this is the functionality. Worst case scenario, when we go live, the functionality might not have the drop downs at all, which is, fine. But just keep that in mind. Another issue is that content and illustration, they don't have any drop down menus, and that is a known bug with the software. And then finally, whenever you just click in a field, it automatically does not put it in the first position. So you have to backspace to get in the first position, or else it will just stop. Like right now, I can't put anything because you can only have one value in this field. So I have to backspace and then put a code in. So that's a little annoying. There's also some issues with tabbing around on the top. If I hit tab from the type, it just does that. It just kind of like goes up, refreshes, and goes back down. But once you get into it a little bit more, you can do some tabbing around. So it's functional, it works, it's fine. Some people have also noticed some issues with the date, the second date, not displaying. I think there's also a Launchpad bug that if you change the bib level, like that sometimes doesn't say, but I haven't been able to get those to do the same thing. So nothing is super critical. Like you can still do your job and make a good record. So moving down from the fixed fields into the regular basic part of the Mark editor, you'll see that each subfield is clearly defined and has a little X next to it. So instead of knowing your shortcuts to delete the subfield, all you have to do is just click on the X next to it and it goes away, which I think is really nice. In this instance, you would probably want to delete the price, but also delete that colon. Um, it makes it, I think, a lot easier to delete them. I'm always accidentally deleting entire mark fields when I'm just trying to delete a subfield because the shortcut keys are so similar. So I really like that. And I really like that it just kind of parses out the data in each line very, very tidily. If you want to add to it, so if we want to go back and say this is like a hardcover, you just click on this black little arrow guy thing. I don't know what else to call it. And then you can put in your input value. And again, sometimes placement with the cursor is weird. And then, do your type in. So at the very end of each line, you have another set of commands. You have this one, which all you have to do is click on it, and then you can drag and drop a field anywhere in the Mark editor. So you can just, instead of like retyping it, you can just pull it around, put it wherever you need it to. There's also, we'll go down to the subject heading. This one actually will copy the field. So whatever field you have highlighted, it's going to copy it, make it the exact same thing. So say we want to do another more specific subject heading, and we're going to do women, and then we're going to do fiction. So it's kind of helpful if you have especially a long string of subject headings that you don't want to consistently type over and over again. This is sort of a way you can clone it. If you want to add an entire new row underneath, you can just hit the plus button and then you get a fresh row to put things on. And then if you want to delete something, delete an entire row, so this 596 field can go, you just click on this X. This X will just delete this subfield A, but clicking on the X deletes the whole line because we don't want anything. There shouldn't be a 596 in here. So click on that and you're good. So the next thing I'm going to show you is kind of a weird, funky little issue with it, and that's with formatted content notes. So I'm going to show one. And this is one of those Best American Essays books. So this is one that has multiple essays and they're each by different writers. And we know it's great for patrons if we have those in as a formatted content note, which each essay has its own title and each author is listed in the 505. However, it displays a lot differently than it did in the old system. So as you can see, there's like tons of like padding and spacing around each entry. So this is the first essay when we were boys, and this is the author. This is the next one. This is the author, and so on and so forth. And so if you have a pretty chunky book full of essays, you're going to have a ton of scrolling to do. This only affects how it looks in the enhanced editor. If you go to staff view, it looks normal. So this is the 505 field and how it looks to the staff. And this is also what the patrons would see in the patron view. So it's only in the Mark Edit view that it looks like this. So this is something where you might want to bounce over to flat text editor if you wanted to do any editing in that, because it's a lot easier to read this way. And this is something that I will file a help desk ticket for because it's not very usable as it is. So that's one issue. The only other issue, and it's not super issue, but just be aware of it, is that if you go to create a new MARC record, it's still going to be the old interface. So it hasn't gotten the upgrade yet. So there's a bit of incongruency there, but it will, I'm sure, eventually get upgraded. So that's it for the new MARC Enhanced Editor. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, I'm not hearing anything, so I'm going to move on to the next section, and that's the Z3950, which also has had an interface change. So let me bring it up here. The main change on this is that they've switched sides with the service and credentials in the query. The query used to be on the left-hand side, and now it is now on the right-hand side. Also, like the MARC Enhanced Editor, things are a bit more spaced out, so there is a lot more scrolling on this, but I think it still makes it a lot easier to read. So I'm pro scrolling when it provides a benefit in another way. So your services and credentials are over here. So you click them, and just like before, your search queries change based on which databases you're clicking. What's nice about this upgrade is that if you look over here on your search terms, it shows which databases use which terms. So if you want to search something by publisher, this tells you that it's only used by the local catalog, IU, King County Library System, and Library of Congress. So you can search by publisher in those databases, but not the other databases. Um, Same thing with if you want to do, let's see, UPC. You can do it with InfoSoup, Libraries Online, Library of Congress, and Prospector, but you can't do it with IU or King County. So I think that's really helpful, and I think it will help clarify to people why they get the results they get sometimes. Because before it was just kind of you didn't really know exactly which ones were pulling from which database. You can set your default, whichever you prefer to search for over here. There's also this hide form where if you click on it, it just hides everything other than the search results. So it's kind of useless unless you've actually done a search. So I'm going to do a search and then scroll down and you will get the results sometime. Maybe I've picked a not good database. Let me refresh the page. Do the ones. I am going to go, let's just do this again. There we go. I think I must have had one that's not working super great. Okay, so your results are right here, just like before. If you click on it, if you right click, you can view MARC. If it's something that we have in the catalog already, you can show it in the catalog. You can go directly to it. You can still overlay records from this screen. You can mark for overlay and you can overlay at the same time. You also have an edit as you import. So you basically have all of the same functions you had before. But because there's so much scrolling, sometimes this is helpful to use the hide form because once you have your results, then you've got like a kind of a cleaner interface to work with. And then you can always hit show form again when you want to see everything. So that's really all for the Z3950. I mean, the main change is just everything's like switched around a little bit, but it still functions the same way. Is there any questions about that? And if not, we'll pass it back to Britta.
And I think I mentioned this yesterday. After we upgrade, you might need to reselect your services and credentials.
Yes, yes. So if you have anything that requires a password, you'll probably have to re-enter it. But you can do it.
We believe in you.
We believe in you. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and pass it back to Britta.
All right. Thank you so much, Jocelyn. Okay. Oh, now I need to fix all of my windows. Okay, so a few more updates, fixes, changes coming in the 313 upgrade. They have, at some point, they removed, or maybe it was just bugged out, the ability to batch remove prefixes and suffixes in the holdings editor. That has returned. So let's go into catalog. Just gonna just go here. And so we are in the holdings editor. Obviously, you would probably have selected a chunk of items to batch edit, but when you are the batch actions, you now have that none option back. So that will batch change all of those items that you had selected to remove the prefix or suffix for your items. Item alerts, they have updated a few things. I feel like this doesn't really tell us what is happening. So I opened up the release notes for 313. So what they did was they fixed the invocation of the item alerts dialog in the holdings editor. They added batch editing for item alerts within the holdings editor, and they say that the alerts get grouped together for editing if they are mostly identical. They add the manage alerts button to item alerts dialog during alert display in the newer updated Angular interfaces, or the ones that have the link that have an EG2 in it. They fix a type error where the default is null exception for missing the default item alert type preference. And then they add, which is my favorite, but also I don't catalog as much as I used to, if at all. But the changes pending indicator for the holdings editor. So what that does is any change that we make, it's not limited to the item alerts, but any change that we make to the item, whether it's attribute or I think even maybe call number, when we click apply, there's going to be a little message that tells us that there are changes pending. And this is useful with those item alerts because we know when we create one, add new, apply changes, it doesn't actually save until we click that apply all and save. So this will be a good reminder to us that, oh, we still need to do that one extra step in order to save our new item alert. There's also, which I don't think it will have saved because it's not even, there's no item in here to actually save. So we should be able to edit item alerts now. I think there were issues with alerts or notes, and we couldn't edit the notes and alerts, but we could, so we would have to delete them and create a new one now. Well, now we should be able to edit those. Novelist Select. If you remember, if you've been a Evergreen Indiana member for a while, you might remember the original staff catalog. It was basically a copy of the classic catalog where we could see that Novelist Select information in those drawers that are still visible in the classic catalog. And we lost all that Novelist Select information when they updated the catalog. That is now coming back. So when we go into a record, there is a new tab called Novelist. And when we click on it, it's going to show us all of that information that patrons can already see in the classic catalog. So we have that series information. Look, they already have like those new titles, which I still need to read. We have the similar titles. Quick question was, if your library does not subscribe to Novelist, that's okay. So the information that we get through the staff catalog and the classic catalog, that is through the consortium's Novelist Select subscription. So it's provided by the consortium. So your library does not have to have your own subscription to Novelist in order to be able to see this information in the staff catalog. But you can also see information like the similar titles, authors, similar series. There's some information like mix and match elements from this book to find others you might enjoy, which might be really cool. Even a link to Goodreads reviews. The really cool function that Courtney and I were really excited about is the addition of the Lexile and accelerated reader information. These are also searchable. So if we were to browse by Lexile and perform this search, then it will bring up those titles in the catalog that range from that 580 to 730 Lexile range. The MARC records do not have to have this information in order for it to be searchable. It's taking this information from Novelist. So while we do recommend and have procedures on how to add this information to our MARC records, it's not required. And we now will be able to search that ourselves in the catalog. A question about training for Lexile anywhere. I'm not sure. I am probably not the best person to ask about that. I can only point you on how to enter it in the MARC record, but you might, if anyone in here knows more information about where you can find Lexile, please feel free to put it in the chat so we can share it with the group. So that's really exciting about the Novelist information coming back. Let me try and scroll slowly because I know scrolling fast can hurt. If there is not Novelist information for an item, it's going to say Novelist. I believe it's going to say Novelist none, and the star is going to be grayed out. So if it says Novelist and there's a gold star, then there is information in there for you. And you can easily, and the tab is not going away if there's no information, it's just going to appear, it's going to stay there. You just, when you click on it, just no information is going to pop in there. The question, can the patrons see the AR points in their searches? I am not sure. We can probably, if it's going to work correctly. Okay. We're just gonna try and find a good record. Okay. So when they click on a title, they have this information, the more details, which will pull information from the bib record. Now, this record itself has Lexile information. They have the appropriate MARC fields for that. This isn't pulled from Novelist. So let's scroll down into, let's see, awards, reviews, and suggested reads. Let's see if what they have. So they are able to search even now for Lexile. So let's say they want to search for the 4.7 middle grades. When they click on it, it's going to bring up the titles with the accelerated reader information. So maybe if they click find it, it's going to tell them how many are available, and it's going to create that new search. Remember, the patrons have always or have already had have always had access to this novelist information. It's just now being re-added to the staff catalog. So the searches will create new searches in the staff catalog. Is there a way to reorganize the tabs on the record page? Like, so staff catalogers can put the most used ones at the front left side and use less used ones at the back right side. Are you, are you talking about this tab view here where it's the staff view? I don't know. That would be interesting to find out because I'm probably going to err on the side of caution and say, no, yeah, I agree. We do keep adding more tabs.
You definitely can't drag and drop.
Yeah, you definitely can't drag and drop. Is the staff, are the staff tabs movable? Kind of like those, the grid configuration stuff. Yeah, I'm going to err on the side of caution and say no, but I've written it down to see if it would be something we could possibly customize for Evergreen, Indiana. I don't know. I think those were all the questions about AR and or Novelist, so let's keep going. Record notes, we are now going to be able to see if there are any record notes on a record via the Record Notes tab. You can see here right now, even if there were record notes, it just says we would have to actually click into it in order to view any notes. But now when we add any notes and click Save, a tally is going to appear here. So we can more easily see, yes, there are record notes that we might, as a Cat 1, want to look at to see if it's something that we can help with, or maybe just any information about the record. Unfortunately, it's still showing creator and editor as admin. So I recommend if you are entering a note to include your username. So catalogers know who to contact about the note. Permissions, this has been, I don't want to say contested, maybe it's added a little extra worry. So I'm just going to move to this because it was important enough to move to. So there were several bugs associated with the update copy permission, which is what allows catalogers to update, create all of maintain your collections. Well, unfortunately, there were some bugs and regressions in the web client that allowed people who weren't catalogers to add items to their collections, and also it would allow catalogers to update items regardless of working location and profile. So the regression allowed Circ1s to change the owning library of an item. And it was always accidental when we saw it happen in the web client, but it was definitely something that needed to be fixed. And so it has. So now instead of just the update copy permission, it has been split up into create copy, create volume, update copy, and update volume permissions. It was asked about yesterday, so at this time, the circulation profiles will not have the create copy, create volume, and update volume permissions. I would recommend, and this may be something that needs to be discussed with the cataloging committee, I am not sure, but I would recommend adding the Cat 3 as a secondary permission group for the update copy, update volume, because there are some circulation staff out there that help with collection, like updating call numbers, I heard someone say yesterday. So I think this would be the alternative to include those. But I would also recommend making sure that they have that appropriate training to do that. So these are linked to the Launchpad tickets if you want to get a little more information about those. All right. Few odds and ends, some reminders about procedure and policy that we would like to go over. The 020 field, we want to remind everyone to make sure that you remove prices from the 020-024 mark fields. Because we are a consortium, we share all of these records, not everyone pays the same price. And so we want to make sure that the pricing is removed from those fields. And of course, those will normally be visible at the item level when you catalog your items. You have that, that price attribute. That's where you would add the item pricing. Regardless of transit status, we're talking about parts again. We always talk about parts because there's always something to update or remind people of. So regardless of transit status, when we're dealing with your DVDs, Blu-rays, a part must be added to those item formats. This negatively affects hold placement. So let's say your item does not have a part, but maybe all of the other items on the record do. With the upcoming change where parts will be a required option to select when placing a hold. If your local person tries to place a hold, it's going to ignore your copy because it does not have a part. So this is definitely something to think about and start looking at adjusting those procedures because we want your items to be targeted for holds, especially locally, or if you transit your video disc collections, we want your items to be holdable. Another reminder that e-content records shouldn't be imported into the staffed catalog. If needed, they should be side-loaded into your Aspen catalog. And I have linked to some information about sideloading in Aspen for Evergreen, Indiana. Some of the collections that we have sideloaded for libraries, the process or how we go through sideloading records, and a little extra information about Canopy just because they release new records, I think like monthly, and then they send a list of titles that they no longer have like a contract for. So those have to be removed. So this is just some information on that. Another thing about parts should be merged whenever possible. So if we have a DVD part in all caps and a lowercase DVD part, we want to merge those and not delete because again, something like this can negatively affect holds. Let's say someone has a hold on the lowercase DVD part, so it's trying to target those items with that specific part. If we delete it instead of merging, that hold will now become hopeless because there's nothing on that record that can target that specific part level hold. So parts should be merged whenever possible, not deleted. Just wanted to add a little reminder. I know a lot of times with people who purchase Wonder Books, Fox Books, things like that, we do have a read-along icon. And normally when we import records for the read-alongs, we usually end up importing ebook records. And sometimes it can be a little confusing to get on how to get rid of the ebook icon and switch it over to the read-along. So this is how we can do that. So we just make sure the type and form codes are A and Q respectively, and then we have those associated 347 fields, and then having those should bring up that read-along book icon. And I think I think this was just a duplicate link from another slide because I duplicated the slides quite a bit. But there is a link to the a list of the Evergreen icons. I think it's on the useful website list that I provided a while back. I might have to do that again. A number of times we get tickets submitted to us telling us that the fixed fields are not saving. This usually happens when the record is missing its 008 field. So once you add one, whether it's through if you right click and click the add 008 or another way, or go into the flat text editor and add the 008 that way, and then save the record, you should be able to then enter information into those fixed field table, and it should save. Sometimes MARC records don't save. This is another ticket we get occasionally. If it isn't saving, like if you get an error message, it might be due to an incorrectly formatted MARC field. I recommend going into the flat text editor. Sometimes it's just a lot easier to view that way, to see if maybe there's a missing equal sign at the beginning of the MARC field, or if maybe the like the spacing between the indicators is messed up or something. So if you find it's not saving, that might be something to look into. Finally, these are some resources for the upgrade. I linked you to the release notes for Evergreen 3.12 and 3.13. Remember, we are going from 3.11.2, which is what we are currently on now, to 3.13, maybe 6. Right now, definitely 5. So we're getting all those fixes and updates from between all of those versions. So these are these will allow you to break down all of those changes across versions. And then, as Jocelyn stated, with the enhanced MARC editor, and we've found throughout the years, no upgrade is without a few bugs. So we included 2 bugs that we like, the missing drop-down menu for content and illustrations in the fixed fields, like Jocelyn mentioned, and then like the control enter, where we use that to add a new field. It actually creates 2 lines. The same thing happens when you try to add a subfield using control D. It'll add 2 subfields. So the community is aware of that. And if you would like to add some heat to these, please do. And I've also linked everyone to the Evergreen Launchpad. So this is where the community as a whole submits wish list items, bugs that they find while working in the web client on various versions of Evergreen. So I linked us to the tickets that have the cataloging tag. You can sort by age to look at the most recent ones if you wanted to. And if you are a participant in Launchpad, if you want to add some heat, you are welcome to. So questions, yes, quick question. When will the update occur? The update should be occurring, will be occurring next Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So Jeremy will shut down production at 10 p.m. Friday night, the 22nd. It'll be down for the weekend until he finishes the upgrade, and then he will notify everyone through the listservs when it is available to log in again. So that is when the update will occur. And then I wanted to include a question that was asked yesterday about accelerated reader ratings or points, if they will be accurate on the material, like our records. We have several ISBNs on a single record, if that is going to affect those AR ratings. I did a little digging. I'm not super well educated in accelerated reader, But from what I can see, I'm not sure if it's going to be an issue because if the edition of the book is that different from those already on a record, and have a different enough difficulty level based on accelerated readers parameters, I would think it would probably get its own record. Like abridged versions will be separate from complete editions, things like that. I was trying to find examples, but I could not. So this might be something that we work on further. Um, there's a question. Hotspots are going to be introduced to your library. Awesome. How do we catalog these? There are several hotspot records out there that you could probably use to start out your hotspot records. Oh, it's not going to do anything because I have it in all books. Let's see. Yeah, there are a lot of records out there because most libraries put their hotspots on their own record. So if you want to maybe click on one and take a look at their editor, you could just kind of copy and paste from the flat text and then paste it into your new record and then update it based on your particular stuff. So that is the quick way I can tell you how to catalog hotspots. And I highly recommend you, if you ever have questions about that as well, try asking the cataloging listserv. I'm sure there is someone out there who is more than happy to help you with that as well. Are there any other questions? If not, thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy day to join us on the live webinar. Again, I will email you when your LEU certificates are available and your accounts will be updated probably mostly in December. We'll see when I am able to get to them, but I will not let them expire. Thank you again to Jocelyn for helping out with the refresher this year. It was a great help for me, and I'm sure it's great for people to hear others other than myself. So, yeah. So if that is all, thank you, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.